Hey there, Wargamers. Welcome back to another Wargames Delivered video. In this video, we'll be going over how to paint a Crannogman Survivalist. Started off with basing this guy with uniform gray and then matte white over top. And we're going to start out with pallid bone over all of his pant legs and all of the fur that's around his coat. We're going to be painting this mini mainly with the Speedpaint 2.0 formula, but we will be switching over to the Warpaint Fanatic line and the Metallic line to add some details later on in the video. I'm using the unit card in the background there as sort of a guide on how to paint this miniature. As always, when you're working with speed paints, sometimes they can get a little bit runny, so just be sure to have a little bit of matte white on your palette just to clean up if you make any mistakes. Some of the areas that we will be painting in this video will require a bit more brush control, so you will see me switch back and forth between brushes in this video. We are going back to physical prizes in our videos, so be sure to check the pinned comment and use the link to head to our Discord to enter the giveaway. And with that step finished, we're going to add some ashen stone and mix it in a 1:1 ratio to the pallid bone. We're going to use this to paint the dead log that he's standing on the base. I wanted this to look like a piece of dead aged wood that's been sitting out in the forest for quite a bit, rather than just going to a dark brown or medium brown. Now we're going to switch over to bony matter for the pikes that are sticking out of the top of his backpack, and also the dead bird skulls on the front of his jacket. You could also use pallid bone for the step if you don't have all the speed paint colors available to you, but I wanted to add a little bit of variation. It's going to be very subtle, but also noticeable once the miniature is all the way done. Up next, we're going to paint his tabard and bedroll using noble skin. This is a nice dark brown without any kind of reddish tint to it. As you can tell, this is a very dark speed paint and it will stain the other colors that we put down already, so just be mindful of that and try to avoid overlapping or getting any on the pallid bone or bony matter areas. If you do make any mistakes, just go back to the matte white and clean back up with the color that you need. And the same rule applies for all of the matte white areas. If you do make any mistakes on those, just be sure to clean back up with the matte white before we switch over to the next speed paint. A good way to avoid any overflow with your speed paints is try to reduce the amount that's on your brush. Sometimes it works best to work with these darker colors in layers like a normal acrylic paint. If you do decide to use layers with your speed paint, just be sure to cover the entire area and then cover it again with that same color so you don't have any difference in tone with the color. Up next, we're going to switch over to satchel brown. We're going to use this to paint all of the belts and the vambraces on his arms. And we're working with the same sort of idea that we did with the pallid bone and the bony matter in the previous step. This is a slightly different brown and just going to add a bit of variation to the browns that are on the miniature. In addition to the belts, straps, and pouches, we'll also use this color to paint the backpack. And it's kind of hard to tell on the miniature, but you can tell on the unit card that he is wearing gloves, so we'll go ahead and use this color to cover up his hands as well. I actually missed a small detail here. We're going to mix pallid bone and bony matter at a 1-to-1 ratio, and we're going to use this to paint the handle and shaft of the axe. Next up, we're going to switch over to Ghillie Dhu, and with this, we're just going to paint the globes of the poison bombs on his backpack. If you're interested in trying out some of the speed paints for yourself, we have plenty of stock over at wargamesdelivered.com, where you can use code YouTube10 at checkout to get 10% off your order, or you can head to our Amazon store. There will be links in the description for both below. Next up, we're going to switch over to Gunner Camo, and with this, we're going to paint the hood and the overcoat that's underneath the tabard on the miniature. Once again, this is a darker speed paint, and we do have some areas with the pallid bone right next to it, so just be careful when you're working around those pallid bone spots. Another trick that I like to use is I keep a semi-wet brush right next to my painting area, just in case I need to quickly wipe away any speed paint on an area that I don't want it. For instance, if I get some on the Satchel Brown areas that we just painted, I will take that brush and just quickly wipe away any of the Gunner Camo, and typically I can get most of the color off and not have to repaint over that. Next up, we're going to switch over to our skin tones using peachy flesh on the face and the bit of the forearms that are exposed. And if you're interested in picking up any Song of Ice and Fire miniatures to try out for yourself, we also have a discount with those running. Use code AOSIAF10 at checkout when you have a couple of those items in your cart. Now we're going to switch over to the Warpaint Fanatic line to add some extra details onto the miniature. Starting out with Basilisk Red, we're going to use this to paint the straps on his van braces. Try to be a little bit more careful with the Fanatics going over the speed paints here, as it can be a little bit trickier to clean up those areas if you make any mistakes, but the same rules apply when you're cleaning up Fanatics over speed paints. Just go back to matte white and reapply the speed paint in the areas that you need. Up next, out of the Fanatic line, we're going to be using matte black to paint the beard and the facial hair, as well as the hair on his head that's poking out of the hood. And we'll also be using this color to paint the beaks on the bird skulls that are on his waist. Once you have that done, we're going to switch to Oak Brown. We're going to mix this with matte black in a 1-to-1 ratio. We're going to use this to paint the ropes that are holding up the bird skulls on his waist. Once again, this is going to be a very subtle difference between the noble skin that we used to paint the tabard in the speed paint step, but it will stand out once you finish the miniature. And now we're going to switch over to the Warpaint Fanatic Metallic line, using this to paint the blade of the sword, the hilt, and the head of the axe. You can also use this color to paint in any buckles that you find on the miniature. And since we're painting this over white, you may want 2 thin coats to get a nice even color on the plate mail metal here. For one of our final steps here, we're going to switch over to the Warpaint Fanatic wash line, switching to dark tone to add some grit and darken down those metallic areas. And if your belts and buckles are a little bit too shiny, you can also use this wash here to darken those down a bit and blend them into the rest of the miniature. Once that's finished, you can go ahead and base the miniature in whatever theme you would like to. These guys are part of the Stark Army, so I went ahead and based them with a nice muddy and snowy theme. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to head to the pinned comment to head to our Discord and enter the giveaway attached to the video. Thanks again, guys. Bye.